going to work on the customization component today. Forgot to do something. Just gonna wait to see if streaming. So I think I'm gonna spend a bunch of time thinking about this now. I think I'm gonna spend more time today here. So, because once again, there's a bunch of different options, and I'm trying to think about what is the best one. Let me put some music. So the options here. Well, I'm gonna study the three.js physics as well, which is kind of confusing because I was looking into that yesterday and I couldn't figure out. I think if I spend more time, I'm gonna figure out, but it is not very clear where exactly all of the engines are called, like the solve method for all the engines. Because the default options exist on the physics engine, but then it's just the barn set thing. So, and then there isn't any point that I saw that it calls the solve method for the barn set simulation. So, I think I'm gonna start by investigating these things while I think about this stuff here. But first I'm gonna explain what I'm thinking about. Because there's two different things that I was contemplating, but I forgot the second one. But the first one is the store. It's like, how do I manage the config store? And there's several different options. That some of them I wrote here, which is to create. I created a different store for the customization. I think that's the second thing, is whether or not you create a different store, which I already did, but I'm not really sure if it's the best way, because I'm using a store to maintain the state of the graph, and then I created a new store to maintain the state of the customization. And the reason why I thought it might be better to do this way is because then, in case I wanna allow people to save their customization later, it's gonna be obviously better if they are separated. But the problem with doing like that is that it feels kind of weird, because the other thing is that the visualization, like, it's much better to make the visualization dependent on the node object, and for the node object should be dependent on the data that I'm gonna receive, like from outside, because the size of the nodes and the distance of the edges and stuff like that, it would be better if they were decided based on whatever information I capture. And obviously they are related, but and this is what I'm thinking about, because the default is going to be from data coming outside. So the sizes and sizes of the node and length of the edges should be determined by default from the data coming outside. But then the customization component should allow you to change them. So the default is going to be for the customization to be based on the node object. But the issue is that, how do I make it so that the store changes the value? Because the best way to do that would be if I change the nodes, obviously, if I set the nodes again, or if I make the variables that create the node dependent on the values of the store. And that's the thing that is kind of tricky to think about, because if I make them based on the value of the store, then I'm gonna have to use the store in the useGraph hook when I'm building the graph, and then I'm gonna have to pass the values here. Maybe that's the best way. I use the hook, and then I pass the values here, and then I make it equal to whatever props I received. But it feels kind of weird. Or maybe I just make them equal to the props in the beginning, so I set them outside. But it would be better, because of the way that React renders, I think, to put them instead of the use layout effect, maybe. So maybe I put them before I build the graph. This is the stuff that I know. I don't know really well. What is the best way? And as always, I think like it's higher probability that the best way is gonna be somewhere in the middle between two different extremes. That's how things work. So here, I think that this makes me think that the best way is probably this way, where of separating the two stores and then figuring out a way to link them. I think that it should be the best approach. And the other thing that I'm not 100% sure about as well, which kind of goes into the same thing, that the best way is going to be on the middle probably, is that on the design of the other store. So one way to think about it is to make a giant object with all the options and make that a value of the store, and then create a function to update that object. So that's the same way that Vue.js does it, I think, based on what I was seeing before. And the downside of that is that every time they're gonna update something, you have to update the whole object. And then obviously the bigger the object, the worse it becomes. The other approach is to make a separate value for each thing on the store. So instead of doing like an object here, I would have a value for the barn sut data, data, or whatever you say that. Then a value for the rotational constant and so on. And each one would be a value of the store. And then obviously the downside of that is that I'm not really sure if it's gonna work with the state of React, because if it is the case that you have to update the whole graph each time that there is a change on the configuration, then this approach is not good, because then you have to manually set everything on the simulation each time. And if instead of doing that, you just updated the whole object, you would update everything automatically, because the other values won't change based on the input. And I think this arrives me to what I think is the best way probably, which is to just separate each value. Should be like you separate into objects, but then you do the same thing that Vue.js does, which is separate by category. But instead of updating the whole object that has the categories, you update the category. But the issue with doing like that is that the way this component works here, I'm gonna have to, the way that I thought about it is create another value here, because I was thinking about it doing like this, so I can pass the name, and then I can use the name to update the values here. Because the problem is, in this other component that I have, I'm using this other component as a child of this to simplify this component here, so I don't have to do the same thing on all of them. But then the issue is that I'm gonna pass this stuff as props here to create the custom component. But then on this component, there is no way for me to tell, like on the handle change event here, what's gonna happen. So in this function this is the input. Maybe I should show the thing. But this is the input that I have in the customization there, and I'm also gonna change this CSS at some point, but for now I'm gonna leave it like this. But it's all broken with the responsiveness, which I obviously hate dealing with. So I'm not really sure for how long. I think I'm just gonna, the way that I'm gonna do it is just keep building until I have something useful and keep sharing. I think I'm gonna make some video on Twitter to show, and then I'm gonna wait for people to complain or to give feedback. Like when people start using and then they give feedback that they wish the thing was better. Obviously I'm gonna change before that if I don't receive feedback, but I think that it's just that the other stuff is a lot more important, because if you don't fix the other stuff, then there's no point in having the website in the first place. So I think that the last thing that I should focus on is on the CSS, unless people start using and then they start complaining about it, then I will change. So another two things that I have to do is to put the drag event here, which is something that I think it might be hard. It's gonna be easy if I use a library, but it would be best if I could avoid using a library, because I don't want to put a bunch of dependencies. But maybe it's just better to use a library and save time. But because the dragging is not that essential, I think, so it might be better to just use a library. And the other thing that I was thinking about implementing here is a collapse button, so that people can set up their physics and then they collapse this thing so they have more space. These are another two things that I'm thinking about. But the input is this one. So when you change the value here, would trigger, it triggers this on change and the on input, I think, functions. So this is another thing that I'm not really sure. I just did this function here, the on input event, because VGS does it like that. And the only purpose of this one is to make the values equal, so I'm not really sure if this is necessary, because I can do that here. But the thing is, when this onChange event gets triggered, then I have to set the new value of the store with the target value of this event, which is going to be the new value. But then how do I know which input this is? Because obviously I need to know to update the correct value in the store. And I was thinking about using the name, but then I realized that I can't use the name exactly, because some of the names have these 2 dots here at the end. So it's not exactly the same name that it is on the store. And I'm also not 100% sure if this is the correct way. I just copied from the other store that I got from another library. So, and this is the problem, because on Zustand stores, they do a shallow copy on the update, which means that if you want to copy the nested objects, you have to do this spread operator a bunch of times to make sure you're copying everything correctly. You're setting everything correctly to the next iteration. So this is the stuff that I'm thinking about now. And it's really hard to think about, because I don't know like what is the best way to go about it. So the thing that I was thinking about how to solve that is just obviously put another variable, and then I pass that variable here for the category instead of passing the name. Which is probably what I'm gonna do, because it's the easiest, but it would be better. The other approach is just to do some string manipulation to get the correct value, but that I don't like that very much, because then obviously you can have a bunch of different names, and then you would complicate the function. It doesn't seem like the best way. So I think the best way is probably just pass the value of the store. And then yeah, but the issue is that I would just call so the reason why I thought about this function is because I can't call the value for the specific value of the store. That's the problem, because I don't know what it's gonna be. So, and like I can't. Obviously I can do some switch statement here as well. I can just get all the values of the store here, and then I do a switch statement inside of the function to see which one it is, and then based on which one I call the set value. But I'm not really sure if that's the best way. I think I can also do that here, obviously. So that's probably what I'm gonna do. Oh, but this approach of the switch I think would be better if every value was separate. But on this one, I think that it's probably better to just pass like a path, which is pretty much what VGS does as well. They pass the path of the object, and then based on the path, I update the value. But then, like, the annoying part is this thing here, is like, how do I make the copies work? That's the issue. And it's really annoying to think about. And the thing I'm not sure, because I got this from the other, is that if this is gonna replace the key with the new one, or if it's just gonna add. I think it doesn't make sense to add a new one, because you can only have one key on the object. So I think, but I'm not 100% sure that it just adds the new key. And you have to put inside of this square brackets when you're gonna update the value. So otherwise it's gonna create a key named option instead of getting the value on JavaScript. So let me think about it. It's gonna be really hard as well to create the physics based on the VJS stuff.
It's not the human race. It's just the human race. There's nothing left to chase. We do not run this place. But both medicine and poison.
So if I receive a value here, I think let me just do that, and then I'll think about later if I should do something else. I think I'll pass here at the end. I think what I should do is just get from the store instead of manually putting here. I'm gonna do that. Oh, but if I get manually from the store, I'm gonna get the value itself, another path. This is another annoying thing. So how can I think about this? The other thing that I was thinking about is whether or not to use this value here as the default value. But then the problem is that it's gonna change the default every time that there's a change in the store. And that's not what I want. But it would be better if I made the other one dependent on this one. That's the issue. I think that's why on VJS they do it like that, but then you have to pass an array here, and then you create another object somewhere else. I think that what I don't like too much about the VJS one is that it seems like it's not closer to the middle, it's more to the place of updating the object, the entire object all the time. I think that's the issue with the way that they do it, so it becomes like less efficient. Obviously it's still good, but I think maybe it could be more efficient if you separate. But the thing is that I'm not 100% sure is if it's gonna update the graph each time. That's the thing. Because if you have to update all the values anyway, then it doesn't matter, obviously. Because you have to, but I think that you shouldn't have to update everything, because to change the positions of the node, all I have to do is just set, when using three.js, set the node position on the mesh. So, which makes me think that for these simulations it would be the same thing. I think that the values related to the simulation itself have to change, all of them, even though you're not changing all of them. So let's say if you change the gravitational force, you're gonna have to update the other ones as well, I think, because the simulation requires all of them. But I think you shouldn't have to update the other values here. That's the thing. So maybe I should separate into simulations instead of separating. But then the issue is that it gets a little bit confusing, because if I have a lot of other stuff, like nodes and edges outside in layouts, then it's gonna become confusing. So maybe I should think about how to update only the values for the object. And obviously the reason why this matters is because it's gonna determine how I pass the information here to here, and how I create the function here to set the value. So let me think. What can I do? So I think the question what I have to focus on is on this function here. How do I make it? What is the best way to only update the values that I want? I think the key is the logic of this function here. So ideally this should be a function that's whatever value of the store I pass there, it's gonna update the correct one. So I think the question is whether or not, because obviously I can create more than one function. So I think this is probably the best approach. I keep the categories like this because it makes more sense to organize them this way. And then if I need, I create another function. And then based on which function it is, I decide like how deep I want, how targeted I want the customization to be. So let's say by changing one input, it doesn't require to change all the other ones to update the visualization. Then I can create another function that just updates that single thing. But the thing is, I have to update the whole object anyway because of the way that the state's gonna update. I think that's the problem. Because if I use the set state, and it updates the host store. So the question is, can I have a way to make it? Oh, I have an idea. I can just make the set state here instead of this thing. But then how the... Because I don't want to make it an object, obviously. And then if I put it outside, then it feels that it doesn't make sense, because then I would have the values there anyway. And I think to make it like this, I need to have the value separately here. I think each time you update the store, you have to update everything anyway, because of the state. So maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe I should just do a giant object and do the same way that the three.js does. And I have to update the host state anyway. The only difference is in the way you get the value, I think. The other thing I'm not 100% sure is whether or not this is gonna work and you have not nested objects on the state, because it says on the documentation that it does a shallow copy, so I'm not sure how that's gonna work out. Or each time I have to do... I don't like it very much, to be honest, the way that the Zustand works, but I think the other state management libraries work in a very similar way. They are different, but they are similar. I think they will have the same problems. So what can I do? Maybe this way works already, but then I just pass the... Instead of using the name, I use something else, and then for the option. So the way that I'm imagining is that I pass physics here, which is this object. Actually the name, not the object. So I pass the name of the category, then I pass the... I pass the option, which would be which one of these. But I need another layer, that's the thing. Because the option is just gonna be one of these. If I want the function to work regardless, then I think I have to pass a path, but then the function gets more complicated. Because instead of passing a category, or instead of passing option, I can pass an array, and then based on the array, I do the functionality here. I do some logic to decide like the level that the thing is gonna be updated. How can I... It's hard to think about these things because there isn't a clear answer, and like I don't know. I had this same problem each time. It's always like this. It's hard to think about what is the best way to structure everything. I just realized that I should probably put this on a function as well. So what can I do? So I think I need another... Maybe I should just do a function for each, just easier and more, instead of thinking about like how to make the function works regardless of the levels. I think this way it might be easier. And then I just pass another value here. How do I access that? I think I have to spread again. Yeah. I have to do the same thing, I think. Oh, but let me think about it. Because each one of these is gonna be related to one simulation. So maybe the solver is the way. Just simplify. Because I know all the values are gonna be for that simulation. So let me think. I think this here is the key. Just simplify. Yeah, the problem is, but if I have to put another value here, then I think it works. So I can do the logic based on the current solver. So maybe I get, instead of getting the solver from state, I get from the store. That's better. Yeah, that makes a lot more sense. So I get the solver from the store. Physics current solver. And then based on which solver it is, I update the values for the solver. So I pass the current solver, which is gonna be the object here already. No, I filtered, I got the path based on the current solver. Let me think. Yeah, I put the path there. The annoying thing is this, how to make this correct. And how do I make sure that it's updating correctly? I guess instead of putting category, you can just put physics. And then I'll think about, for the other ones, how I'm gonna do it. I think the nodes and edges is gonna be annoying to figure out, like the length. Especially the edges, because the edges have... The length of the edge is determined by the true points of the nodes. And that's gonna be very annoying to figure out. So obviously, is a difference between vectors. Between the positions of the 3D visualization. So I subtract one vector for another. Or you get the... Yeah, you have to create vectors, I think. To get the distance. And then base... No, but the length would be the distance, so you have to do the other way around. So you have to update the position of the vectors based on the distance you want them to be. Just gonna be hard to figure out, because it's also something solved to study. You have to study the solvers. I'm not gonna be able to do all this stuff until Night Simulation starts. I guess too many things to figure out. It's too fucking hard. So the question is wait, only this one. I'm gonna make it based on the current solver. I think I have to do this nested thing. It has to be physics here and then current solver. Maybe I don't need to pass the current solver. I just get it from the store. That makes more sense. I just pass. Oh, actually, physics. I hate having to do this though. Because it's very confusing. It would be much better if I just change the pattern. So let me think. So I'm copying the states with the new physics that is gonna have the current solver. Then I'm copying the current solver, and this is gonna be the option and the value. Yeah, I don't need a category. So obviously if I want to make general for each one, then I just put the category there and just replace. Instead of physics would be the category. So is it better to do that? I think I have to do it like that because I can't change the way that the input's gonna work. And for the other parts of the simulation, this is the problem, is that the flexibility is based on the design of this component. So because everything depends on the same component, I have to make more general function that is gonna allow for all the values of the store to work. So I think it has to be a generic function. So it's probably past the category there. And then I pass here. The other thing that I can do is another value of the store and then make the value depend on this. Oh, this is another problem. So I think I'm gonna leave this outside because this one is easier. Yeah. I don't wanna do the spreading thing again. The question about doing like this is whether or not it's going to update the component to the state. How it works. Sense though to use the value, like get the value of the store for the current solver it pass inside of this function here. It does because the components are gonna change every time that the solver changes. It's gonna get the other value here. But I guess I don't need to put them here because I will just pass inside of here from here. I have to spend some time thinking about it, as I don't know what to do. So I think putting these categories here better. Thing is, so it have to pass each time. Or maybe not, maybe, oh, I think I'm gonna have to do this anyway. So create a new object for each configuration. So for the edges, I will create another one like this. And for the nodes as well. I have to think about what kind of customization I'm gonna do for the images, because it has to be. Yeah, the thing is, I'm gonna change this a lot based on however the visualization is, because it's gonna depend on the actual visualization and how to make it better. Like I have to create something and then try to use it and see what I don't like and then try to improve from that. But I have to think about that now. So I structure things in a way that it's gonna, once it gets to the point, it's not very difficult to change things. So I think the best way is probably to just make this like, instead of putting here, I just put physics options. And then I will create another one. For each category, I create a different one. And then I pass the name for the thing inside of here, because I know that all of these inputs are gonna come from physics, or from the that category. I think it's probably better to make a value inside of the object and pass here as the category, because that way it's easier to understand what's going on. And then I pass this category to this function. I have to make it like this. But if I make this way, I still need the category though, I think. No, let me think. Actually, I can have this function and then I can put a switch on this component that decides based on the category which function to call from the store. That is that. It feels like something together, like in a weird way. I think probably it's better just separate to just leave like normal function and pass the category value. The thing is how I think I need to pass one actual one to determine the output. Yeah, so I need to pass one more prop so that there's the prop. Let me think about this. The option would be there. Yeah, but I have to pass the option in the input here. Okay. Actually, it's not gonna be only the physics one. The downside of this is that it makes... I have to make it based on the physics, I think. Because the levels are gonna be predetermined. This is the issue. For this enable as well, I think it's probably better to put it outside of the physics. Because then I can do the same thing as that I did with the current solver. And I don't have to update the whole object, like do this annoying thing here. Yeah, because if the other ones are not... What if I have one that has multiple levels inside of the object? That's gonna be very annoying as well. Yeah, this is a massive problem actually. So I remember on Zustand documentation they had some stuff about this, but then it requires using another library, which I want to avoid as much as possible. It doesn't feel that this is the best approach, probably. Problem is that I don't know if other types of star would be better. And I know that reactor fiber uses Zustand as well. I think like I can create a function maybe that like I pass the levels or something like that. That's complicated as well. Or to copy depending on the level. But also it wouldn't work because the names would change. And this is very annoying. Thing is, I want to avoid dealing with all of this because it feels like adding complexity for the sake of adding complexity. I want to simplify as much as possible if I can. I don't like the idea of using another library to just do this thing here, merge states. There must be, obviously I can change the way that I'm organizing this so it's easier to update. Maybe I should just leave the, I should, yeah, I can create a different function for each one. Yeah, there's several different options actually. Another option would be to create another component for the input and then I just change the store, but that doesn't feel like it's right. The other option would be to pass the function as props, but also doesn't feel very good. I get the function from the store, then pass here, get on this component, then based on whatever object I create here, I pass a different one by props to this one. Or I can get all of them from this one and then do a switch to see which category it is. And then maybe that one is the better one. I use the corresponding one for the category, corresponding function, and then I create multiple different functions. And then I don't have to deal with the state. But then I have to make sure that on each one the levels are always the same for each thing, which is kind of annoying. So the data structure has to be the same for all of them. I have to keep the consistency of the levels of the customization. That's the problem. But I think for the nodes and edges, it's probably, I think it's more likely that I'm just gonna leave it separate here. I think the physics is the only one that I'm gonna use an object. The thing is, I haven't studied too much the three.js layouts. So for the layouts, I'm just thinking about leaving like this and then just using the layouts. But obviously, this is probably something I'm gonna have to change in the future as well. So like the layouts could be more complicated as well. I think they are gonna be more complicated because ideally I would have the functions themselves, so I don't have to be trapped by the graphology thing, because that would be also another thing that would be good to, at some point, remove, like to, because it would be much better to just use the own data structures that I have and then make the algorithms work with the data structure that I have for the nodes and objects, and then I don't have to use another library like Graphology. And also I would have more control and flexibility over the way that the layout works, so I can do things with the layout that are related to animations and different types of visualizations I could do. So the layouts feels like it's gonna be more complicated, but then the nodes and edges I think would be just simple, because everything I would change. There isn't too much things to change when it comes to the edges. Just the format of the edge, which I'm gonna leave two options based on the geometry, three.js geometry, to be curved or straight. I'm not gonna complicate too much because I think that is not worth it, because it's not that important in the visualization. I think straight edges work most of the time. The only one that would be nice to have, like an additional one, would be the line that comes straight from three.js, which is a lot more efficient than the other ones, but it only goes up to 1 pixel of thickness. So I'll probably have these 3 different options for the edge width, and then some value for the edge length, and for the node will be just the color and the size, I think, and also the segments as well, because the less segments the more efficient it is as well. And then obviously I could create an algorithm that correlates the size of how many nodes you have in the simulation and how like more basic the visualization becomes. So as the size of the nodes increase, you switch to the options that are faster automatically, and then leave the option for the person to customize. Because I think WebGL has to do a lot with the GPU that the person has, because it does stuff with the GPU, but I'm not 100% sure. So I think, yeah. I think it's better to just separate it, probably. I'm just gonna leave it like this, I think. And then I'll think about the other ones. It's not gonna be that big of a deal. And then I put the logic to change inside of these components here. So I have to think here how I'm gonna do that. Here it would be update physics option. And then I think I would get the... I don't need to get the current solver actually. Actually, I have to get... I'll make a switch statement here, and then based on the current solver, so I'll also get the current solver from here, and based on the current solver with the switch, to see which function I'm gonna use. I think it's probably that's a better way. It allows me to avoid doing the annoying customization there. So I have to put the... I have to put another value here for each one. Maybe on the simulation I can leave it as the name. On the physics, because they're all the same. Yeah, I think physics I'm just gonna leave exactly as the name, because they don't have the 2 dots. It's only on the minimum X and Y that it has. I think I'm also gonna remove this minimum X and Y, this wind here, because it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Like, I don't see how this is gonna be useful. It just creates a force that moves the nodes in X and Y direction. But I don't see like any reason why this would be useful for the stuff that I'm trying to do. So I'm probably gonna remove that. But I think these ones I'm gonna have to leave. Max velocity, minimum velocity. Yeah, so let me remove this wind thing here. I don't know what's the purpose of timestamp. I think I'm gonna implementation to see what's the point of this. Oh, the other annoying thing is that I couldn't figure out a CSS way to make the height of this fit the content and the width as well. So I had to put a fixed value to... And also the responsiveness is shitty. So when you do like this, it fucks up everything. Like, it takes too much space of the visualization. The smaller the screen is. Interesting, it changed the mode as well. I don't know why it's changing the mode. Oh wait, what was that? What the fuck? Oh, I think it's because of the... Yeah, the camera controls probably don't have the thing for pinching. I think that's the reason why. So when I put it on the cell phone display, it goes into another mode. Yeah, I think that's what's happening. Yeah, so if I do this, it pans. But if I put like this, it rotates. Interesting. Another thing you should think about. The thing is, like, I think it doesn't make a lot of sense to optimize this for smartphones, because I don't see how people would use this on a smartphone. But obviously, I think nowadays people say that you should prioritize smartphones because most people use the internet on smartphones. So, but this, to me, at least, it feels more like a... I would never use it, but I think it's not a very good proxy for people that they're probably gonna use this, because I don't use smartphones at all. So. Yeah, but the way that I would use it is always on the desktop, obviously. So what is timestamp? I think timestamp's probably how much the simulation goes forward, like the tick of the physics stuff. Yeah, it's like I thought. Interesting. This like the biggest problem with understanding how the physics engine works is that they did everything based on the event emitter and then started to figure out what parts of the software are listening to the events that are triggered by the functions. And that's the hard part of understanding how the simulation works. And I have to think about a way to test if this is working, if the update function is working. Where can I console log this stuff? To see if the value of the star is equivalent to the value. I guess I can just console log after the function. For the physics, I'm gonna leave it the same way. So the way that I'm gonna do it is that way that I thought about. I'm not gonna think about this now, but I'm gonna think about it in the future. I have to pass category. Yeah, I'm gonna pass another prompt. Maybe I should just leave, like, just do this now. I don't remember if I have to return. I think it's just break after this. I don't remember if I should return the function. think I should probably return here. Yeah, let me think. I think I'm not gonna put the return now because I want to console log the value. The new value of the option to see if it changed. So maybe it's better just leave like this. I think break is fine. I'll be right back. we'll go for another 2 hours and then I'll stop. Because there's a build space. Yeah, stream that they're gonna announce who was accepted. Yes, I think. Oh, I think this is it. If this works, then I'm gonna start studying the VJS physics, because that's gonna be difficult to implement. Remove this thing from here. Yeah, that's tough. So it looks like it is not changing. But maybe it changes after. Could be. So I think one idea as well. I was gonna say to make the value of the input equal to the value of the equal to this value here, but that doesn't work. Because I think it updates, because it might be not changing, but it would change even if it was before, because it's triggering more than once. So this is wrong, obviously. Let's see here. Undefined. Oh yeah, I was gonna make this the name. Yeah, so now it seems like it's changing. But the problem is that I think it's always updated, is the stuff that I was talking about before. That because this function runs Oh, but maybe no, maybe it's because just I'm console logging here, so it is the same value, but the thing is that it changes with a delay, I think. Because obviously, like the value that is showing on the input there, 75, is this value here, which gets updated here, and then this gets updated, and then console logs, I think. But this, so this probably console log, this probably runs after this function is runs, maybe. So I think one way to test is just to put the value to make it equal to the, or I just, yeah, but this is not gonna change anything, I think. But I can make this value equal to this one, and then see if it's gonna, yeah, but how would I know if it's not like delayed from the actual value? I guess I can go to the maximum and see. Just one. How about it? Here's 95. Yeah, so I think I'm gonna do that. So first I'm gonna do like this and see if it changes anything. I think it's not gonna change anything. Yeah. But I think if I do this, it's gonna fuck up. I think. Yeah, it doesn't go to one. And so this is the problem, is that this is gonna run after the value changes here. At least I think it's updating correctly. So like this function is working, I think. But maybe it is working, it's just... There's also the problem with this stuff. Like the bigger the change is on this stuff, if it is lagging, it's gonna be lagging behind more. So maybe it is not working. Because the value should obviously represent the same value it is there. And now it's changing this one as well. Even though I didn't change this one. So it's definitely not working. And now it's not changing. So now it's not changing anymore. So how can I solve this? It could be just that I'm console logging there here, and that's why it seems like it is not the correct one. But here I'm not really sure if it's gonna work. Like, it's gonna represent the actual value. So I think it doesn't run. But maybe I can put this inside of a user fact. Yeah, so it is working, I think. Yeah, but then, like... Well, it should work because the user fact is not changing the value of theta. It's just changing every time that the value changes, so I think it is working. It's that when you console log inside of the function, it shows the previous value because it updates later. I think that's what's happening. So even though the function... But I don't understand why this happens though. It's kind of confusing. Because this is not, like, this is just a normal function. But it's probably because of the way that React handles the events. Because obviously on the user fact is very similar. And the state as well, I think. Where it creates the effects then versus the DOM. And then at some point it updates. But it's not like at exactly at the same time. It's not synchronous necessarily. I think here is the same thing. So even though I'm calling the function here, it's gonna run this function first. Then it's gonna put the value, like, it's gonna put this function somewhere. But it doesn't make a lot of sense. I think I'm gonna leave it like this, and then I'm just gonna study the physics now. It's probably easier to see if it works or not. But the issue is, I guess I can change the step and the maximum and minimum. Because the gravitational force is gonna be very clear if it is working or not. So I think I can change once I make the physics simulation work, I can change the values, like the value of the step, and then I'm gonna see if it's lagging behind or not, the value of the star, because everything's gonna be dependent on the value of the star, obviously. Yeah, I think it makes more sense now to spend time trying to figure out how to make the visualization or the physics happen. Because if the physics doesn't work, then it doesn't matter as well. Maybe before I do that, I should set up I have to change the way that I'm deciding the layout here. And then I need to create a selection on the other component, see if the layouts work, and then I put all the layouts. Because I think that some layouts are not working, so I have to fix that first. Once I fix that, then I start working on the visualization. So I think I'm gonna put as empty in the beginning, once I fix the layout types, so I can work on the simulation, see if it's working or not. I also have to think about how I'm gonna make it so that I think I'm gonna use the enabled to determine whether or not, because when the physics run, the layouts have to stop because they are not related to the physics. And this is something, is the thing that I was talking about with the graphology, that I'm gonna have to at some point try to merge, but I need to figure out a way to like leave the same, like work at one thing at a time, so I can have more stuff, and then once I have more stuff, then I can merge the two. I think it's probably gonna be better to just move from these layouts to trying to incorporate them the same way that three.js does, because then the physics work with the layouts. That would be the best thing. I think it doesn't matter much as well. The other thing I have to do is camera mode and put it on the, like based on the star as well. I also realized that I don't need to put inside of the canvas the stuff, because I'm wrapping everything with the provider for the star, so the star has access to the values. It doesn't need to be inside of the simulation, as long as I make the values of the visualization dependent on the values of the star. So I'm trying to remember what layouts, like the list of layouts that are available. I think I have it on the here. But I don't remember if the name is exactly like this. Oh, I think it's on the layout provider. Yeah. I think I should study the physics.js first, because it's not that important to have the layouts figured out. Like, as long as I have a couple of them figure out that work, I think is the most important one is figuring out the simulation first, because that's the hardest one and also the most useful, I think. Yeah, so I'm just gonna see. I'm gonna try some of them and then see which ones fail. Then just leave the options for the ones that don't fail. And then I'll think about this later. And then I'll start studying the VJS now. Try to incorporate on the thing that I'm doing now. No. The difficult part is gonna be figuring out how to put everything on the use frame. I think that's the most difficult thing. And I was thinking about this yesterday as well. I'm not really sure how I'm gonna do that. Cause like I have to set up, like, first is where to set up the forces, because the layouts are gonna set up the forces on the node object. So I'm not sure if it's a good idea. It's probably. I think I have to figure out. First thing I have to figure out is how to. I'm gonna have to turn off the physics for when the layout is selected. And this is another problem. I think that's the first thing, is I have to think about what I'm gonna do when there's nothing selected, because right now the way that it's working is like in the beginning there needs to be one layout selected, otherwise the graph doesn't build, because it's calling the function the use graph file. So I think the first thing I have to do is figure out how to make it so that it initializes as random, and then only when I put the layouts, it calls the function. I think that's probably easy to do. I don't understand why this is warning. Oh, maybe it is because of the... Oh, went away. Thought it might be because the start needs to be inside of the canvas. Yes, I don't know. So I have to think about how do I make it so that just the initial positions without layout. So I think it's probably pretty easy. I just comment this out and then I put, yeah, just remove this from here and remove this. It should be building the graph though, so it's weird that it isn't. And this is gonna fuck up because there isn't a layout. It's weird because it should be building. Oh, it's probably because it's not. I'm not setting the nodes. This is the issue. The problem is that like it has to be based on the graphs, and then this is the problem with the graphology again. Because there isn't an easy way to get all the nodes from graphology. Maybe you should read the documentation again and see. Maybe just graph.nodes and then guess all the nodes. Because it has to be the nodes from graphology that are there, I think. I think I'm gonna try like this first, then I'll see. This is the part that I stopped last time that I was trying to refactor everything. Because I had to figure this out. So the problem is that these nodes are not gonna have the meshes, but they are supposed to have here. I should have the group. And so another thing I have to do is figure out how to create something that makes the errors look better. I don't understand because the nodes should have the... I think maybe it's the moment that is setting the nodes. That could be the problem. But that makes sense because you wouldn't run the function. I think that doesn't make sense. Like the moment that other function runs, this should already being set. Let me... It's probably not the issue, but... Yeah. So, what is wrong here? This one doesn't have the group. Oh no, I'm consolidating the edge. Oh, so I probably changed the... Yeah, I put them on the wrong place. Yeah, now it should work. Damn. What a dumb mistake. So let me move this here, see if this works as well. Let's see why it wouldn't. I'm probably gonna remove this. Yeah, so I think let's go take a break. Yeah, so now let me think. So probably I should change this here as well. Because I have to remove this condition. And I have to trigger this with the layout changes, which is gonna be triggered, but maybe I don't need this, but yeah, the issue is gonna change. So I have to see if I remove the other ones, it's gonna work. Because I think the problem here is that it's gonna trigger when just. Alright, I think I'm gonna remove all of this. Let me think about it. It's probably better to, if I'm gonna do it like this, to put this functionality on the store as well, and then I call the function from the store. I think that's probably better. I can create a function. I call it stuff like that. And then it calls the other function. This is the issue that this function here is this massive function here, and then it's wrapped on the hook. So maybe it's better to leave it like this. I think it's not worth thinking about too much because I'm probably gonna change this anyway. Once I have all the other stuff. I'm gonna probably change all the layouts as well at some point. Or I can just leave it like this. But I think this way is not gonna work. Oh, it still does. Yeah, so I'm gonna create the selection thing. I'm gonna copy this one. It's probably better to put on top of the physics. Or maybe I should put inside the physics as well. I think I should put like here. Or here. I should put one of. Yeah, I remember a lot of them use the same function, the forest one. So what it makes more sense to put the other kind with the line. And this is a problem. The issue with doing CSS with modules as well is that like you lose flexibility because you can't put once you create a class for one thing I asked ChatGPT this as well, and you can use a function to combine different classes, but then you have to use another library, which is annoying. So the way that three.js does it, they build several different classes, and then based on the classes they create, but because I'm using just CSS modules, I put everything, like I created a class that combines all the classes that the other ones had, and then I just made one class that contains the style. So if I want to create another style for this one, I have to create another class just for this one to change the size here so that it fits. But I think I'm gonna think about this stuff later. Working. That's probably because of the function there on the use graph. Yeah, but yeah, I think it's because of this one. So if I put none, it's gonna fuck up. Yeah. So let me think. Let's see if we're removing this thing here. It still fucks up. Oh, actually, if I let's see if I put a but this my microphone's kind of weird because it's not showing the voice there. So I'm not sure if it's working or not. Yeah, so let me think about this. I think it's because when I access the value here, it triggers the use effect there. And I need to figure out a way to only run this function when the... Oh, actually, the thing, what I can do is just put a condition here. Yeah, it's probably the easiest. Actually, I'm gonna go back to the way that it was before, and then I just put this condition there. Let's see if this works. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, there we go. Nice. Yeah, fuck yeah. So I think there are some of them that are fucked up. Maybe I think this is happening when I save, when with the hot reloading. This is something I need to study more as well. It's like the difference between hot reloading and saving and refreshing. So, like I don't understand why this warning here if I'm using the other stores and the other stores it doesn't complain. And this can be an issue even though it still works when I refresh. Maybe config store is... But it shouldn't matter if the name is the same because I'm getting from the file. It's probably complaining about the... Oh, it's complaining that it doesn't have a store. That's because I didn't change the error there. Well, let me change this. Yeah, but this is... So it's probably an issue with the way that I did the provider, because I did slightly different than the other one. I have to think about this. Because in this one, I created this on another file. I created here, and then I'm wrapping that. So maybe it's just better if I just do the same thing. I think I'm just gonna do that and see if the warning goes away. And then after I do this, then I'll take a break. It might be something related to the React, to the way React is gonna update everything. But I don't see how it would change because it's the same thing. Like the only thing that changes is that I'm passing children, so it might be that. It might be a weird thing that with the children, because children is a part of the props inside of the React source code, I think. So it might be like there might be a difference if you pass the children than passing as HTML on the return. So this might be the difference between the two. It doesn't matter that much, I think. So let's see now. How do I test this? If I save here. Yeah, I think now it works. There's still this problem with the hot reloading that creates another one. So the difference might be... Yeah, but I don't understand really well. Let me think. Because I am removing the nodes from the scene when the component mounts. Maybe I have to change these other functions as well to remove. I don't know how the callback return works. I know how the use effect one works, but not the use callback. Maybe I should. Yeah, but I think it doesn't make sense to like remove the nodes on the return of these ones, because like I'm adding the nodes on the other ones, so to the scene. I'm adding them here and then removing them here. So it shouldn't be... It shouldn't put like more than twice when it re-renders. But maybe like when you hot reload, it updates without unmounting the component. That might be the case. But I remember that before I even put this stuff here, it still worked. So it might be something else. Which is obviously bad, because like when I create other pages for other visualizations, it might fuck up everything. There's still a lot of stuff to do, actually. And it's kind of discouraging, to be honest, because there's so much stuff. Yeah, maybe I should do this as well. I think VGS has something for the drags as well. I don't remember. Yeah, they have options for dragging as well. So I think maybe I should do that as well. I'm gonna have to change this stuff here as well when I change the visualization and implement this simulation, so. It's interesting that there's another thing. Like the edges become thicker when I... So it's probably because of the way that I'm updating there. I think I forgot to do... Yeah, I think I changed the value that I'm using for the tube geometry when I created the first place. No, it's... Or maybe it's just because... Yeah, I should make this base, I should change this as well now. I should make this based on the edge size, I think. So let me see which one. Is different. Yeah, so here is 0.2, here is 0.5. I should change this to be the edge size. Yeah, this is like what is weird is that when it hot reloads, it just. So I'm gonna try to clarify this difference as well. Because I want to clarify so I understand like if this is a problem with the way that I'm removing and adding things, because it can fuck up things later, I think, or if it's just normal for this to happen. So there's a difference in sizes here as well. Oh, it's because it doesn't have a size, I think, because I'm mapping over the selected edges. It's still a weird thing. Yeah, I don't know why it's becoming thicker. It's just one of them. Maybe it's because I'm creating more than one. Yeah, I'm creating. Let me think. I think I'm creating the edges, but I'm not sure if it would make sense. Sure, because I think the problem might be that I'm creating two different edges because they're two different nodes. So like I pass the same edge here. I'm getting one for each node. But I'm not sure if that would make it so that the gets multiplied instead of replacing the old one. But I think I'm just getting the edges from one node to the other. Yeah, I think it's not the problem because I'm only getting one node from here, and then I'm updating the edges from that node. So I think it's probably different nodes that I'm using, probably because of the visible nodes. I think the default is here probably. That would make sense as well, I think. And it's because it's undefined. Oh, it's because I forgot to put it on the other one. It's weird that when it's undefined it doesn't break though. Okay, now it's working. Yeah, I think I'm gonna take a break. A 15-minute break, and then I'll continue for 1 hour. Actually, I'm gonna continue for less than that, because I wanna see the build space string. So maybe I'll keep going now for half an hour and then I stop. I think that's better, probably. Or for 45 minutes. So, what is the next thing now? Alright, so I was gonna see if the other nodes. Maybe I should write here. It's not. Yeah, I'm not sure if it is important or not though. I think I remove this stuff here. Yeah, so now let's see the other layouts. I'm gonna think about the hot reloading later, I think. First I'm gonna try to figure out everything else out. It's the one of the ones. I think I remember like looking at this function before. But I didn't understand why. It's probably because... But the thing is, I didn't change anything on this one, I think. I changed the ID before, but then I went back to the other way. So the nodes should have ID, so it's saying that it doesn't have this one. I think this is why I opened this thing here. Or maybe it's just because of the structure of the graph. But if it is because of the structure of the graph, then like it's a problem with the way that they build this library. Because Siri works. So obviously what I can do is just change the nodes. Not sure if I want to do that. Let me think. I think it's more important to figure out the physics first. So that's what I'm going to focus on. I think I'm going to change the order of this show here. Because it's already good enough if you have two different layouts that work. And the most important is the physics, most difficult as well. And then the rest should be easy to figure out. After I figure out the physics, then... And also because I might change the way that I'm doing the layouts, so once I figure out the physics... So it's gonna be a waste of time if I figure this out. I change later on anyway. So let me go back and see if the other one works. Not sure if this is supposed to be like this. Yeah, I can't see much from this example. So I think I'm gonna test a couple of other ones from the same... Because a lot of them use the same function. I'm gonna toss these ones that use this force directed. And then I'm just gonna leave those ones and the circular one and this force atlas that works as well. And then I'll see if I'll figure out the hierarchical. Like, the thing is that the hierarchical one should be very good for like several different things that I could possibly do in the future. I already have like billions of ideas of stuff that I can do later when it comes time to like actually get information and visualize stuff. I'm also writing down the ideas on another spreadsheets file. There's the issue is that there's too many things to do, like with visualization, like, and a bunch of other stuff that I was thinking about. So I want to be careful to not. This is part of the reason why it's so hard as well to like figure out what to do here. So I want to be careful to not get into paralysis by analysis. Fuck. I think I'm gonna rewrite this so I know which ones are from the force layout first. Another thing I could do is also just put them on the same function and then do the same thing. Like instead of displaying the layout like this, I could just make another one of this, and then I would pass like the values for each one. So it would be just like the solver, but instead would be for the functions, and then I would have the inputs here instead of passing as props here. Maybe that's a good idea as well to do. But I think, like I said, the physics is more important than this. So I figured this out later after I figure out the physics. And I think that they are probably related because I know that VJS uses some stuff related to the physics, related to the Force Atlas as well. Like there's some engines here, yeah, it's Force Atlas shoe based. So I imagine that is similar. The algorithms for creating the physics simulation and the layout is similar. I think as I study the physics is gonna clarify the layouts as well. Same thing again. So it didn't matter that I change. Like the weird thing is that it's only displaying for this one, but not displaying for the other one. But I guess I think the problem is where I'm initializing where I'm using the star. This is the difference. Is that in the beginning it doesn't have anything because I'm only using the other story inside of the canvas component, and the canvas is wrapped with suspense, I think. So maybe I should wrap the other one with suspense. Oh, I'm gonna change the thing here as well. Oh, I'm just gonna put something like this. Oh. I'm not sure if this is the problem though. Yeah. I should do better. Like he's complaining that the values are null. I don't understand why. Like why on this one he complains but the other one it doesn't. This one. Also, maybe it's because of me. No. I think it doesn't change anything. I'm gonna remove these ones that doesn't seem like they do anything different than the other one. So is the tree, yeah. Is this true? Yeah, now it doesn't show anything when it's saved. So maybe it was the suspense. like this. Yeah, so now I'm gonna study the aspect. I think for the VGS physics, I'm gonna do a flowchart. I already spent a bunch of time studying this actually. I think for the events, it's gonna be better if I do a flowchart so I know like at what points it's gonna call the solve. Because obviously I think it's gonna depend. Based on the current solver, it initializes the class on the init physics. No. And here, the init this function. So after the set options, and these functions run based on the events. So I know that the start simulation, no, the init physics starts on the set data on the network. That happens after the set options. So it sets options here, and then after that causes set data, and then it's going to emit, reset physics, reset data, and then at some point here, like here, it emits the init physics, then calls this function. And this is the one that starts. I don't remember where it calls the init, where it calls this. I think the set options comes before on the network. As I said in options for the network, it sets options for everything. So here, somewhere here. Yeah, set options here. So here is going to init the physics. And this is going to create the solvers, but the problem is that. So maybe just the name that I'm confusing. Yeah, I think it's just the name. Because on the staff, it's gonna call each one of these, I think. So I think I was just confusing the name. So this gravity solver is always, no, it's not always the same. But it always calls the same thing on the staff. But I think I was just confusing the name. Yeah, here, because it just calls these ones, but then I was confused because obviously more stuff, but I think that now I understand. It's just gonna call the solve method of each one. So I think what I have to do is just get copy the classes and then see how can I implement them on the nodes that I have, nodes and edges, with the state on React. I think that's what I should do. And then obviously again, there's probably gonna be some issue when thinking about like what is the best way to implement, because it's gonna be related to the state of React state. And then also the customization. I have to think about the customization. But I think the customization only comes from the options, because when you initialize or when you set the options here, it's gonna come from this function. The other thing I'm gonna have to change obviously is that I'm gonna have to make it work with the 3D. I think the way to do it is just create 3D vectors, and then it's gonna be annoying, but it's not hard. It's annoying because you have to think about the relative coordinates for each thing and how they're gonna be. So, but it's gonna be just like calculating the distances and then adding or subtracting the x, y, and z based on the vectors from three.js, I think. Yeah, so maybe I should create like a step-by-step thing here, so like at a time. But I think it's better to spend some time studying them first, so I have an idea of like which direction to go. But I think now, like before I even study them, what I'm thinking is just get the algorithms that are used to calculate, understand how to set up everything. Maybe I'll put these ones now and then I'll change later. How they set up the forces initially on nodes and edges. Creates algorithms in separate files. Copy algorithms in separate files. This is the problem though. I think I have to put the physics separately. So maybe I should create a graph that indicates whether or not the graph was built. The same way that they were doing with the layouts. And then I make equal to the graph build and then I return, instead of returning the nodes from graph build. Or whatever I'm returning there. I just return a boolean. And then based on that, I put on a separate use effect the physics. I think this is the thing that I wanna have to clarify, is what is the best way to connect the customization thing with the algorithms that create the physics and the nodes and edges, taking into consideration the state of React. That's the stuff that I have to think about. So when I change the customization, it has to change the physics. And also I have to figure out the use frame as well. So probably here inside of the... Yeah, how do I make it so that I... Because it's gonna complain that I can't put the use frame inside of the use effect. So obviously there's gonna be a bunch of approaches. One of them would be to make the function equal... Hold the function in a use effect, or use the use callback thing separately. Then just update the value with the function and then pass the function later on to the use frame. But I think I'm gonna have to study the reactor fiber again to see, because I remember that they use the object to add stuff to the thing. So I have to study how the useFrame hook works again. After I study how the useFrame hook works, I can see how it adds the functions to the request animation frame cycle. And based on that, I add the thing. And I have to see if there's a problem of adding like separately to the request animation frame cycle, or adding... Obviously the time is going to be the problem. It's going to be one of the problems, but I don't know if it's the only one. Because I know that I can call the request animation frame inside of the use effect and then pass the physics step inside of that thing. So I guess one question is that I have to clarify is how does Vue.js handle the like how does the request animation cycle changes when the simulation changes? But I think that I'm not gonna be able to solve that just by thinking about Vue.js because it's different in the way that I'm doing. Because I think that the way they do it is just they rebuild everything each time. And it's based on the event emitters. So when there's a change, the simulation is going to emit an event, and then the event's going to set up the... Like it's going to stop the simulation, and then it's going to initialize the simulation again once the changes are made, I think, based on the events. I don't know for sure, but I think that's the way that they do it. But I can't do it like this because I'm not using the events. I have to find a way to make it work with the use frame. Or the cycle from reactor fiber. So I guess one question would be how does I'm trying to clarify my mind. But like let's say I have a function inside of a request animation frame. When I change the value, one of the values that the function is dependent on, what happens? So, but I'm trying to think about a way to formulate this that is better to search. Because I want to understand if it's gonna... If I change the value, for example, I change the theta on the simulation, then I reinitialize the simulation. If that's by default, it's gonna change the way the callback function I pass inside of the request animation frame. I think I have to understand more how the algorithms work first to think about this. But I should study them with that in mind, I think. So let me... Because I want to spend some more time to clarify this question, so... Because then when I study, I'm gonna know like what to think about. To make it easier in the future to do the thing. So how can I formulate this? So maybe this would be one question. So I think I need to initialize the solvers with the options. So I get the options from the store, the physics. Get this object from the store. And then I initialize, these will be the options that I pass. And then inside of the use effect, I create something like this. and then I pass the options. But I think I'm gonna try to do a more functional approach instead of using the class. So instead of putting in a class, I create a function that accepts the options and that initializes the solvers based on the options. Or I can just do a switch again, and then I leave the function separately for the solving. I put everything inside of a function instead of putting them on a... But it might be better to do it from the class, because I think like there's gonna be stuff on the initialization that is different than the stuff that runs on the solve, and I only run the stuff that runs on the solve on the loop. So I think it's probably better to use the classes. I can just copy the classes, modify the algorithms, and then I initialize the classes inside of the use effects based on the switch statement on the current solver that I get from the store. Yeah, I think that's probably the way. So I get this value as well, and then I pass this value and the options inside of the function. Then I do a switch based on the current solver, and then I initialize the classes. I initialize the class for that solver, and I pass the class there. Yeah, but what I was gonna do is see which ones are rich here. I need to think about what is a good way to... Maybe it's a spreadsheet's better. Because I want to map the... Or maybe I should do the other way. I think I'm gonna make it smaller, and then I put the solver here, then grab the solver nodes and edges, and I put which one is which for each solver. I think we're not gonna be able to finish this now. I'm just gonna do it. I think I'm gonna stop here, and then I'll do this off stream, so almost over the time. And then, yeah, I'm gonna complete this off stream now. So I'm gonna map these 3 ones here with each one, and then I'm gonna follow the steps that I talked about now. I'm gonna... Not sure if I'm gonna do it on stream or not, but just gonna see. I think maybe I'll stop now, and then I'll watch the build space stuff, and then I'll come back later. Because it would be better to study this on stream. Or maybe I leave for tomorrow, actually. And then I'll do something else off stream. Yeah, because for maybe I'll do the stuff that like moving the code around, like creating other files, then putting the functions in the file and setting up the use effect. Just in the first way that I'm thinking about now, which I'm probably gonna change in the future, but then I will come back either today or tomorrow, or actually 2 days from now, like Friday, to study more just the physics because it's probably going to be very difficult to change the physics as well. So I'm gonna have to. I want to spend like one day just studying like Vue.js and the physics. Yeah, but what I'm gonna do is probably just change the. I'm gonna create this spreadsheet here that has the mapping of each one here, and then I'm just gonna create the function, pass the options, create the switch statement. Based on the switch, I initialize the solver. And then based on which one it is, I have to see a way, maybe I return from the function, I return another function that runs the solve, which would be the physics staff. So instead of the use callback, I return another function. And then I use that function to pass inside of the request animation frame. And then I put an if statement. So if the function exists, then you run the function, and then inside of the function would have the methods for the thing for each one. But I'm gonna obviously think about that a lot more. So I'm gonna do the stuff that doesn't matter upstream, like moving the files around and organizing everything, and then probably next time I'll spend one day just studying the physics, I think, from Vue.js. Yeah, maybe I'll change my mind on that. But if I don't, I'm probably gonna come back either today or 2 days from now.